And let's thank again Rafe Perlman and our crew. Thank you. Can you tell they love you? So this year our theme has been about traveling on the transformative journey. And the truth is, when we started asking questions about what does worship look like in the future, how does our building serve us in the future, when we started to ask those questions and go down that road in our current building project, we called in a transformative journey, whether we were intentionally doing it or not. Because the truth is, when you make changes to your home, when you remodel or make some changes, doesn't something happen inside of you that changes as well? Or you change your job, or you move to a new location, then those changes are felt inside of you. And in the same way, when we make changes inside of ourselves, then also the changes happen in the outer. As within, so without, as above, so below. So we're on a transformative journey. We're on a transformative journey both individually and as a community and globally as well. Because now more than ever before, you are being called to wake up. You are being called to rise higher, to go deeper than you ever have before. And you have been born to this time to make love manifest on this planet. Did you sign up for this? Yes. To live with a heart of gold, to live with purity. You have been called to put into practice ancient teachings that have crossed the globe. Now, in the past, it was only a select few that could have access to sacred teachings and ancient teachings, but now they're on the internet, right? Now they're everywhere. Everyone has access to these teachings that used to be a secret. So we have all the tools, and it is up to us to take advantage of all of these tools at this critical time in history. So one of the paths on the transformative journey is the golden rule. Now, what's interesting to me is that the golden rule has been taught, again, across all time, across all religions, across all countries. It's in all stories. And what is the golden rule? But do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And we've put in the front of your bulletin today a list of all the different ways that this is said in the different religions, because again, it can be found across the world in different spiritual traditions, and it's been handed down from generation to generation. And sometimes the golden rule is stated positively, like in Buddhism. One should seek for others the happiness one desires for oneself. Or, Black Elk, Native American spirituality, all things are our relatives. What we do to everything we do to ourselves, all is really one. And sometimes it's stated negatively. In Hinduism, this is the sum of duty. Do not do to others what would cause pain if done to you. Or, I like this one, the Yoruba proverb from Nigeria. If one is going to take a pointed stick to pinch a baby bird, you should try it first on yourself to see how it hurts. Right? So one is about pain, one is about pleasure, one is about happiness, and yet it's the same story, that it comes back to us. Treat others as you would wish to be treated yourself. So why is the golden rule so important? I think because the practice of it enhances empathy. When we're able to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, we're no longer in the center of ourselves, right? We're no longer stuck in our ego, but we're willing to step out. And we can imagine our actions, other actions being done to ourselves. So I want to share with you an old story. It's an old ancient story. And it's about a foolish monkey and a wise monkey. And the foolish monkey really practiced the golden rule and prided himself on practicing the golden rule. He was so good to everyone. And then one day there was a flood that came into the town, and so the foolish monkey climbed the tree, and he's safe, and then he looks down and he sees a fish that's struggling in the water. And he's like, oh my gosh, if that was me, I would want to be lifted out of the water. So the foolish monkey reaches down, grabs the fish, brings him to the top of the tree, and of course, what happens to the fish? It dies. But the foolish monkey was like, but that's what I would want somebody to do for me. And the wise monkey, who lived on the same island, when she had the same experience, she looked at the fish and recognized that the fish would die if it was brought out of the water. So even though she would have wanted to be lifted out of the water, the fish necessarily would not, because she recognized that it would kill her. So how do we translate this story into today, into current situations? How about when we don't agree with someone or we judge them and we put ourselves in their place for a moment and we say, well, I would never do that. Have you ever done that? You know, you're watching something happen or you read a story and you're like, I don't get it. I would never do that. And you might even for a moment put yourself in that person's place and say that. But the truth is, until we are fully present in that person's body and have been through every situation in their lives that led to that moment, how do we know how we would actually act in the same situation? How do we know what we would do? Have you ever said, I'll never do, and then you fill in the blank? Right? And then how many times have you found yourself having to do that? I always think sometime like there's an angel or something hiding in the closet listening and writing down every time I've ever said, I will never, or I'm afraid of, and then boom, here you go. I remember one time traveling through Reno, Nevada, and looking around the town and going, what person in their right mind would live in Reno, Nevada? Really? I lived in Reno, Nevada for 5 years. Or being from Chicago, you know, Missouri, who would live in Missouri? Well, guess what? I lived in Missouri for 5 years. So I've stopped saying that. And you know what else I figured out is there were amazing people in Missouri. Amazing people. I still have best friends from there. There were amazing people in Reno, Nevada that are still some of my best friends. So whenever we put it out there and we say never or I couldn't, put yourself in other shoes or maybe in another town that you might have to end up living in. Carl Jung said this, that emotion is the chief source of becoming conscious. And there can be no transforming of light into dark or dark into light without emotion. There can be no apathy that moves into movement without emotion. And so the golden rule assumes that by putting ourselves in another's shoes, that we develop empathy, right? So what's empathy? Empathy is what it isn't sympathy, and it isn't feeling sorry for somebody, right? Because when I'm feeling sorry for you, well then what does that mean? It means I'm better than you, or I'm looking down on you, and you'll be all right. But empathy is like I'm standing with you. Right? I'm with you, and I hear you, and I feel what you're feeling, and I know what this experience is. If I haven't lived it, at least I can reach out and I can empathize with you. And then probably another question that leads to this is, when you empathize with your friends, is it easier for you to empathize with them when they're in trouble or they're feeling bad? Or is it easier when they're doing well? So the first Buddhist saying, I'm going to go back to it, was, one should seek for others the happiness one desires for oneself. And this is a Buddhist practice, which is wishing the best for each other, even if someone that you are wishing this on has had the success that you wanted. Did someone ever get the promotion that you wanted, or got the relationship or something? And a high Buddhist teaching is to be not jealous, but to say, wow, congratulations, that's great. So that also is empathy, right? So empathy is not just, oh, I feel your pain and suffering, but hey, I feel your success and your support, and I celebrate you, and it doesn't diminish me to celebrate your success and to celebrate what's going right for you. So again, it's another piece of the golden rule. John F. Kennedy used the golden rule in a speech that he gave May 3rd, 1963. It was right after the violence in Birmingham, and things were just out of control. And I want to share with you a piece of this speech because he is appealing to the golden rule with the country. He said, it ought to be possible for American consumers of any color to receive equal service in places of public accommodation without being forced to resort to demonstrations in the street, and it ought to be possible for American citizens of any color to register and to vote in a free election without interference or fear of reprisal. It ought to be possible, in short, for every American to enjoy the privileges of being American without regard to his race or color. In short, every American ought to have the right, and here's the golden rule, every American should have the right to be treated as he would wish to be treated, as one would wish his children to be treated, but this is not the case. The heart of the question is whether all Americans are to be afforded equal rights and equal opportunities, whether we are going to treat our fellow Americans as we want to be treated. If an American, because his skin is dark, cannot eat lunch in a restaurant open to the public, if he cannot send his children to the best public school available, if he cannot vote for the public officials who represent him, if, in short, he cannot enjoy the full and free life which all of us want, then who among us would be content to have the color of his skin changed and stand in his place? Who among us then would be content with the counsels of patience and delay? It's an amazing speech. And he called on our higher selves, right? He called on the golden rule. Treat others as you wish to be treated. After the speech, Martin Luther King said that it was one of the most eloquent, profound, and unequivocal pleas for justice and freedom of all men ever made by any president. And granted, we hear these speeches, they make these speeches, and things don't change, boom. But they start an energy change, if you will. Yeah, they start a movement. So the practice of empathy then leads to compassion, which leads to kindness, which leads to making changes. And the qualities of compassion are love and kindness, as well as a willingness to help others ease the suffering of others. A Persian poet, Sadi, said, "Human beings are members of a whole, in creation of one essence and soul. If one member is afflicted with pain, other members uneasy will remain. If you have no sympathy for human pain, the name of human you cannot retain." That's thousands of years old. So what makes us human is our ability to put ourselves in another's shoes. As much as I love my dog cannot put herself in my shoes, right? Your doggy cannot look at the world through your eyes and go, oh, you're a little stressed at work, or, and I believe our dogs can feel what we feel. It's the same with your kitty or the other species. What makes us different is that we can put ourselves in someone else's shoes. We can put ourselves in the consciousness of a dog and say, how is the dog perceiving reality right now? How does my cat see things? How is this bird in the tree seeing things? We have that ability as human beings to do that. And we also have the ability to time travel in our minds, yeah? To go forward and backwards and to look at how things could be different. Another old story is that of in a village, there was this old man, and when he ate, he slobbered. He was just really old, and he would drop his bowl. He had a wooden bowl, and it broke, and so the family just gave him his bowl, and they just put him off to the side, and they're like, so they didn't have to look at him eating such a mess with his bowl. And so the father noticed his daughter was in the yard, and she's carving a bowl, and he goes, "What are you doing?" And she says, "Well, I'm carving a bowl for you so that when you're old, I can put you out in the yard with your bowl." And of course, the man was able to time travel, and he was able to see himself as an old man with a broken bowl in the yard. And so he brought his father back in the house, gave him a good bowl, and let him drool to his heart content, or whatever he needed to do. So again, what makes us human is that ability to put ourselves in someone else's shoes. It's that ability to time travel. And there is a reason that the Golden Rule has been taught and offered as a spiritual practice in religions around the world. It's because the ancients knew that as humans, we're different from every other species on the planet. Again, we can change, we can look at things differently. C.S. Lewis, in his book, The Four Loves, talked about the different kinds of love. And one is, of course, erotic love, where two people stare into each other's eyes and they get lost. But the other love is that of a friendship. And Karen Armstrong was saying that we aren't looking to fall in love with each other, because you can't fall in love with everybody, right? But we can become friends. And when two people stand side by side, shoulder to shoulder, with their eyes fixed on a common goal, there's nothing that they can't do. There's nothing that can't be done. And so it is through this practice of empathy, it is through this practice of love, through the Golden Rule, that we're able to look out together and see a goal. You have been born at this time to make love manifest on this planet. You have been born with a heart of purity, with a heart of gold. And every single one of us has been called to wake up, to rise higher, to go deeper than we ever have before. And one of the ways we get there on this transformative journey is through the practice of the Golden Rule. So get out there and put yourself in someone else's shoes. Thank you.